house is burning, but we're still sitting in the glow. Phones charged, lights on, pretending we don't know. But the forest is silent, the river's running low, and the flame on our plates is the strongest fire we throw. Put out the fire, put out the fire. Echoes and rise, this is your hour. 7 boundaries broken, the earth pushed past the line. Climate, land, species, fresh water, chemicals, nutrients, oceans in decline. Not danger, disaster in real time. Put out the fire, ooh, put out the fire. Metaphorians rise, this is your power. And here in India, one truth stands the same. Milk is not just milk, dairy feeds the flame. Cows and methane, fields and forests turn to grain. Politics, culture, carbon, all wired to the same chain. Every cup of curd is heat in the air, every block of butter is a forest repair. It's not a small habit, it's a planetary affair. Put out the fire, put out the fire. Echoes and rise, this is our hour. Energy fixes half the hurt, Dr. Rao made that clear. But food fixes the other half, the half that's burning here. Change the plate, change the land, change the future's atmosphere. Put out the fire, put out the fire. Metaphorians unite, this is your choir. Every millet, every fruit, every sapseed, every bean is water on the wildfire of a world we've never seen. Every oil-free bite is a river turning clean. This is not perfection, it's direction. Not pressure, but protection. A week of choices can cool a generation. A company's courage can ignite a nation. Put out the fire, ooh, put out the fire. Echoes and rise, this is your hour. Metaphorians unite, Metaphorians ignite, sharing love in the metazone, light in the path to a cooler home. Put out the fire, ooh, put out the fire. Together we rise, together we inspire.
Welcome to the Planet B podcast, where truth, transformation, and faith converge. Join us as we flip the script on ecological despair, guided by Dr. Sailesh Rao's vision for a compassionate, rewilded vegan world. Let's begin the journey to the greatest transformation in human history.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of the Planet B podcast. Today, we'll take a deep dive into how did we heat the climate. Dr. Rao, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
I love Rumi's poetry. So this episode, let's start with your opening quote by Rumi.
You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. The more we assume responsibility for our actions, the more we realize that everything stems from us. So each one of us can expand our consciousness to include everything in the universe as your responsibility.
So
That's what
beautiful.
it means. Yeah.
So, Dr. Rao, the last couple episodes we've talked about this. It's been a deep dive into human history, which has been so fascinating, and looking into the ice ages and the changes and fluctuations in Earth's temperature over time.
Right.
But through the data that you show in chapter 13, something around 6,000 years ago seemed to level out the temperatures. Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's straight from the ice core record. Scientists have drilled through the ice in Greenland and in West Antarctica, and they have sliced it layer by layer to analyze the air bubbles that are trapped in the ice. And that's how we know what the temperature was, and we know what the CO2 levels were year by year. And that shows that until about 6,000 years ago, the CO2 levels in the atmosphere matched what was happening in the previous interglacial period, 3 ice ages ago.
Wow.
So it closely corresponds to what was happening 3 ice ages ago. And then 6,000 years ago, you see a deviation. So it, instead of going down, it starts going, flattening out and going up a bit. Okay. And that's what William Ruddiman calls the human effect. This is what our ancestors did when they started burning down forests, clearing land, and growing crops for agriculture. So you see that signature in the CO2, the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere, and you also see it in the methane levels in the atmosphere. And the methane is because of extensive rice cultivation and also because of the use of cows and buffaloes in agriculture. And because these cows and buffaloes emit methane, any cud-chewing animal does that.
Wow, so it all goes back to the agricultural revolution then.
Correct. So the agricultural revolution clearly had an impact on stabilizing the climate or the planet during the Holocene era, because that's the only explanation we can come up with for why it took such a major deviation. Instead of going down to another glaciation, the Earth stabilized and stayed in the Holocene for the last 10,000 years. Then you see over the last 200 years, the CO2 levels shooting up, and then the methane levels also shooting up in the atmosphere. So that is the Industrial Revolution. And that emitted a lot of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And as a result of that, the temperature has gone up by 1.5 degrees Celsius from pre-industrial levels. When William Ruddiman projects it out, he is assuming that we will continue doing what we're doing. And so then the temperature goes up to about 3 or 4 degrees Celsius in his projection. And then he assumes that we'll all die off. It's like, we are mindlessly continuing our industrial revolution until we die off. And then the temperature comes down in his projection and goes back into glaciation. Now, that was the only projection he did. So I am claiming that there are 3 possibilities, not just one. First possibility is, of course, what he said, which is we mindlessly continue the Industrial Revolution, mindlessly kill everything off, and then the Earth goes back to glaciation. That's one possibility. The second possibility is we continue mindlessly heating up the climate, and the Earth does not go back to glaciation after we die off, but just goes off into, the Venus syndrome, which is quite possible because basically when you increase the temperature so fast, literally within 200 years, we've increased it by 3 to 4 degrees Celsius. If you do that, that's like the human body having a fever.
Right.
Okay. If you have a fever of 3 to 4 degrees Celsius, you can die. And so once you die, it can become the Venus syndrome.
Yeah.
Meaning literally the temperature can keep increasing until it reaches 400 degrees Celsius on the surface. Right? And all life could die. When it happens very slowly, over say thousands of years, the Earth has the possibility of adapting to it. But when you do it very quickly, it's a fever.
Which we're doing now, very, very quickly.
Exactly. Yeah, we are doing it very, very quickly. And that's why, when people say that the Earth's temperature used to be this high before, so what is the problem? I'm saying, yes, it used to be this way before, but it took thousands of years to get there. And in which case, the Earth has the ability to adapt to that. But when it happens very, very quickly, it cannot adapt so quickly. Right? So that's the second possibility, that you increase the temperature and then the Earth just dies. And the third possibility is that we consciously start cooling as opposed to continuing to heat. Why?
Right.
Because we know that it's better for us. It's better for our life. So we consciously start cooling, and then we stabilize the temperature at the stable state, which is the thermostat setting from 200 years ago, and maintain it there for as long as we want. So that is the transformation from climate heating to climate healing that I'm talking about, right? And that requires a system transformation of the human engineered systems of the planet.
I like choice number 3 the best, I think.
Yeah. So I say, at the end, I am only going to consider choice number 3. I'm not going to consider choice number 1 and choice number 2. It makes zero sense that we would continue to do that. Yeah.
It's interesting because it seems like, this is kind of why possibly that you chose the title of your book, There Is a Planet B, is because most of the people in this field are only thinking about number 1 and 2.
Right, yeah. Because they cannot imagine a different human engineered system.
Right.
So they're just assuming that we are stuck in the system, and that's all we know to do. Now, all human engineered systems that we have today, we inherited. We didn't design any of those. We kind of tweaked them a bit here and there, but mostly we inherited them. So they're all organic, right? They were not designed. And now we have the possibility of designing human engineered systems that work for all of us. And this is why it's important to go through the foundations. It's important to go through, how do you stabilize systems? How do you maintain them so that they stay aligned with nature?
Yeah.
Right? So our generation has the responsibility to re-engineer human engineered systems so that they are stable.
One of the things that we're all trying to learn how to do better is to communicate this message of number 3. How can we communicate this out better to the general public?
I wish I knew. Yeah. You don't know what inspires people. So we are thinking of stories, we're thinking of, we tried documentaries, they only reach the intellectuals. You don't go beyond that. And you have to now think of stories that would inspire faith leaders. I watched the video of this Jain leader who created an event to tell his followers to go vegan. Okay? Because he's gone vegan. So first he convinced himself that he has to do it. And then to convince his followers, he created an event in which he had one spiritual leader, a medical doctor, to explain that it's healthy to do this. And then the third person he had was an athlete, a Jain athlete. So you have to find people within the community who are, a medical doctor, an athlete, a spiritual leader, and finally a young social media influencer. So
like a panel, kind of like a holistic panel.
It's a holistic panel. It covers all aspects of this transformation. Okay. And then he also had a smorgasbord of delicious vegan food that he said is available in the cafeteria today if you go eat it. Right. And he invited people to come up and taste it. And then he also created a website addressing all frequently asked questions.
That's wonderful.
It's a fairly comprehensive event he created. It's very well thought out. And I thought that's a great way to bring a community along, an event like that. So every community can imagine doing something like that. And that's how I think the message can spread, that we have to move out of this climate heating phase to the climate healing phase. And as I said, climate is just number 4 of 7. So it's
Yep.
literally healing all 7 planetary boundary transgressions. And that's what you will do when you try to heal the climate holistically.
Yeah, it's very interesting. What fascinates me so much about your book is when you go through all of the human history and the 9 planetary boundaries, and it's so clear that vegan is a solution. I know we'll get to that in the following chapters. I think we're all discovering better ways to communicate that message because it's like you said, everyone is coming at it from a different angle. So it's helping people unite around this Planet B concept.
Right. Planet B is a comprehensive systems engineering framework around veganism. Okay. That's the way I see it. Veganism is the fundamental philosophical change that needs to happen. And it's really just implementing the scriptures of all the religions of the world. Okay. Because all the religions of the world are talking about compassion for all creation. So it's implementing those scriptures with integrity,
Right.
without putting escape clauses. Right? That's all it is.
Yeah. You're not adding any lines to it.
Right, right. You don't have to. Because we originally probably had to include all those escape clauses because we thought it was necessary to consume animals for our well-being. And now we know it's not true.
Right.
And this is why it was so important in the panel for that Jain leader to have a vegan athlete. So that he had someone there who climbed Mount Everest as a vegan. And he was building his body as a vegan.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful. So this is just a shorter episode. It was more into, how did we heat the climate? But I think it just ties into this moving forward. How will we work to reach more people with this message? Dr. Rao, would you like to share any final words for episode 13?
I want to tell you all that we are only going to focus on option number 3, which is how do we start cooling the climate right now and how do you start stabilizing it. And that's the rest of all the episodes are only about that. So please stay with us and come along and don't follow William Ruddiman's option number 1
So,
or the option number 2 that may happen.
oh, wonderful. Yes. It's an optimistic look in the solutions right here. So thank you so much, Dr. Rao. And episode 14 is really exciting. So episode 14 is how we use the earth, which the statistics are shocking. I think they're very important for people to know. So we hope everyone joins us for our following episode.
This has been a podcast from Planet B, where we stopped confusing convenience with necessity. If you haven't moved here yet, we thank you for visiting.
Well, that was nice and short.
Remarkable. Remarkable in its clarity.
So let's have a conversation. We invite everyone to raise your hand and Dr.
Ray,
Rao can
yeah,
call
Ray
on
had a
you.
bunch of comments. Ray, did you want to come and discuss those?
Yeah, I wrote in the chat as a reaction to what you were saying about veganism is something you start with yourself, and that was exactly my experience when I saw Cowspiracy. I went, I don't know how much of this I can just absolutely absorb.
We lost your sound. Yeah, suddenly, I mean, it's showing that your mic is on, but we don't hear you. Okay.
Okay. He's gonna come back again.
Right.
He'll, yeah. Hmm. Okay, he's back. Let's see.
Come back to me.
Okay. Mhm. Hmm.
Is your audio working now?
Is it working?
Yes, it is.
We hear
Right.
you.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, great. I logged back in. I'm not sure what the deal was. I was saying that I was reacting to when you were talking about the veganism is something you start with yourself.
Right.
That was my experience when watching Cowspiracy in 2015. I couldn't immediately absorb the entire world view, and I think I mentioned before that I said about trying to debunk it at the same time as I signed a clipboard saying that I was joining Climate Vegan, a new organization, and I wasn't even vegan yet. But I recognized that the world needed to change. I was convinced of that. And there was one person in the world that I had influence over, and that was me.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
technically, you can start the process before you commit to it, but how long can that possibly last? How long can you be part of a solution? And I see that in environmental circles, they don't start with themselves; they start with policy. And
Mm.
how can you accomplish something when you start with policy if it's nowhere near the Overton window of everybody's? The zeitgeist is eat meat, and carnism is we eat meat because we eat meat, which is not any
Right.
sort of a rational, evidence-based decision-making process. It's the opposite of that. It is the rejection of any sort of justification. We're justified because we are the status quo. We are doing everything that's normal for humanity, whether it's harmful or not.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think that confounds a lot of environmentalists who don't understand vegan solutions because their solutions are entirely top down. We have grassroots movement. They call themselves grassroots movements, but they're a collective of individuals who are pressuring top down change. And that model, I mean, it has to happen. We have to keep demanding the policies that we need to override the industrial and economic drivers that are destroying the planet. We need to constrain those planetary boundaries from all the different sources of pollution. But the one that they ignore the most is the one that's causing the most harm, and they just don't have any understanding of how to get from here to there on a policy only platform. You can't demand vegan laws today. But I've got a book about activism and it says the best form of of activism is future-oriented activism. If you're looking for policy, it's called present-oriented activism. Demand something that somebody could possibly say yes. Demand something that where a politician will say, "Oh, that sounds reasonable. We can do that. We can change our energy grid from fossil fuels to renewable energy. It'll take 20, 30 years with huge resistance from the industries who are speaking exactly the same language as us. We can't do anything unless it's increasing growth and starts with jobs and ends with solutions that grow the economy." And you've pointed out many times that that's a madness that you can't use that as your motivation to solve problems.
Right. 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 It's a motivation it's not a motivation to solve problems. It's a motivation to maintain the system, growth. But you're right, about the solution requires us to change and also change policies. So it's both personal change and social change has to happen. Now, when you change personally, right, when you go vegan, for instance, the kind of policies that you would like to demand for the change to happen at the societal level are different than what the normal environmentalists are asking for, right? So it's no longer about, change from, give me subsidies for electric cars. I'm saying, give us subsidies for healthy food. Make healthy food free. And so then you're addressing all 17 all 17 of the Sustainable Development Goals.
And that's a huge step to change animal agriculture by you can reject it today. You can just stop right now. Whereas stopping fossil fuels right now, it permeates our society. We know that's true of animal agriculture. There's lots of animal products and everything around us, but not to the same capacity. And there's a bit of a hypocrisy that is kind of a sore spot, especially amongst climate deniers who like to point at the COP summit. Look at everybody flying in their jets to the COP summit. We still have to burn fossil fuels. And that's an example of, if you think that you could be effective at the COP summit, that's a plane flight that's worth taking. You're not going to the beach. You're not getting sand between your toes 2 or 3 times a year. You're doing something arguably constructive, though, it's debatable about how constructive when they really only want to solve one issue. And the silver bullet issue is something I find so fascinating because people will tell us, "Oh, you vegans think you can solve all the problems." Well, you're deflecting exactly your silver bullet solution. You think a renewable energy grid is going to solve all the problem. Demonstrably, with math, prove that it cannot. You already know that. Everybody already knows that renewing the fossil, changing our energy grid is not going to solve it. But it's almost, I point to capitalism is this mindset that legitimizes anybody who's got a widget. If you got a solution, you're allowed to focus on that 100%, and you're allowed to diminish any other competing options, just as you would if you were Coke trying to say that you're better than Pepsi.
Right.
There's not really any difference, and it's in our minds legitimized because it's all around us. This is a society we live in, and we protested the Naomi Klein's documentary because it didn't talk about animal agriculture. And in the Q&A afterwards, they said, "I'm sorry, this isn't something that we're experts in. We're specialists in climate change that has to do with fossil fuels. We can't speak to that, and therefore they don't." Is that legitimate? I don't think so. Not if you're trying to solve climate change. If you're trying to get to 350 parts per million, use all the solutions to get to 350 parts per million. And to evoke Greta Thunberg again, how dare you ignore solutions?
Right.
Sorry, I keep saying you. I'm not talking to you directly. You're obviously the voice to the voice of reason. And you sometimes go to the COP summits and sometimes don't, because it's not worth the flight.
Yeah. Now I'm going to go to the next one for sure because I think it's worth the flight.
We need you there.
Yeah. Toby.
Hello again, Dr. Rao. I was just thinking about what Ray was talking about there as well. Just how I got into veganism really was through, like I said before, about like deep self-reflection, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to understand really how much my life meant to me, because I was going through some times where I felt a bit worried and not knowing who I was, and I started to worry for my own life. Really, I was going through some things, and then I started to go out to really everybody and all creatures. Like, life is the only chance we have at life. This is the most precious thing you're ever going to be able to experience is just life itself. So to take it away from somebody or to have someone suffering is just, that's all you want to go. You want to go help alleviate that as much as possible or prevent it. But for people to go through a deep self-reflection is you can't really ask people to do that. Like, you got to do it themselves. And so the other thing that I find could be compelling for people to get them to maybe self-reflect in these ways is to understand it's actually doable with a small amount of people, really. We don't need to have the whole world to change for this to be able to happen, to be able to prevent the other two examples of either going back into an ice age or, turning into Venus or what have you. So I've heard you say before, but maybe you could explain a bit more about how many people, what amount of population it would take for this, planet B to actually take over. And because we know, like, how animal agriculture is teeter-tottering, it's not really, they need so much money to be able to keep them going through subsidies. And yeah, maybe you could explain a bit more about how it doesn't take that much.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't take that much because it's all ensconced in a system called capitalism that requires every entity to grow. If it doesn't grow, it collapses. Okay, so all you have to do is prevent it from growing. That's it. It collapses. So you don't have to shrink it to zero yourself, is what I'm pointing out. You just have to shrink the growth. You have to eliminate the growth. And it becomes harder and harder for them to subsidize it. And but before you do that, you have to create pathways for transition, for transformation. You have to create pathways because it's not about collapsing something and then having chaos there. Right? So it has to be done systematically, because this is not a local transformation. You're doing a complete global transformation. So this is why I go into the foundations of the system. You have to understand the foundations of the system. You have to understand the goals of the system. And you have to basically do solid systems engineering. Okay? It cannot be accomplished with just tweaking things in the old system. Because there are so many foundational flaws. That's why you have all these flare-ups in nature happening. So it's exposing all these foundational flaws, and you see chaos in the social systems as well. And that's also exposing foundational flaws in the social systems. I mean, people are going to be writing PhD thesis on this stuff, in the future. Lots of PhD theses are going to come out showing the systems transformation that needed to happen, and studying the systems. And in the past, we know about tipping points and how social transformations happen in general, right? But I believe that this is on steroids. This thing has been suppressed. Okay. So the pressure has been building up like crazy. So it doesn't have to, it may just, slip right by the 3.5% and go straight to the 50%. I don't know. Okay. It's one of those highly nonlinear transformations that's going to happen. Because even over the last 5 years, it has been artificially suppressed. Okay, with marketing campaigns against veganism, and where without addressing any of the root causes for why veganism was being adopted. So when you suppress like that, you're going to create more nonlinear behavior in the system.
Yeah, it makes me think of like it's that IGF-1, insulin growth factor 1. That's basically what planet A is, isn't it? It just wants to get bigger and bulk up as much as it can.
Right.
But it's giving itself cancer and everything in the process.
Right. Right. And we have to reach maturity as a species. We have to reach maturity, which is signaled by us not consuming milk anymore. You're no longer this infant species that can be deceived. So when you mature, you begin to see things as they are. Right? So you become immune to the deception that's going on in the system.
Because I have friends and family who, adore nature, and they don't really see veganism as really anything you could do about animal agriculture. So that idea of saying, well, it doesn't really take much, and you're also not harming these creatures, and what the all the things you're preventing by going vegan.
Right.
They sound like they're only small, but they're actually quite big impacts that you. But then people also talk about ways to help climate and things, and they're relating to agriculture, but they want to do regenerative agriculture, and there's a different means to go about it.
Right. Well, yeah, they're not seeing the big picture of regenerative agriculture and why it doesn't work. Ultimately, that 1 to 39, that 39 to 1 reduction doesn't go away when you do regenerative agriculture.
Yeah.
So nothing changes, except when you say, I want to do regenerative agriculture, you're saying, I want to use more land for my agriculture. And where is that land going to come from?
Exactly.
Yeah. So addressing the 39 to 1 reduction is fundamental. And that's what veganism does. It says, okay, I don't need to do that 39 to 1 reduction. I can eat directly. And that's when you release land back to nature. Regenerative agriculture does not release land back to nature. It tries to say that it will solve climate change by sequestering carbon. It does nothing for any of the others, all the other transgressions. And even that, it does that by using more land to grow the same number of cows. So we have to understand how to argue this, how to point out to people why there is a flaw in their logic.
Yeah, because like you say, in all the different organizations, they have all different numbers for agriculture and how it relates to climate change, like 14.5 or 18 or
Oh, yeah,
25 or
yeah.
so no one knows what to believe, so
Correct. Yeah. That's part of the process. They're trying to confuse you. So you don't
yeah.
have, it's very hard to confuse a systems engineer, by the way, because we've been through this before. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Thanks. I'll listen get on.
yeah.
Cheers.
I wanted to go back a little bit, if we
Mm.
could, on the subject of the podcast, which is how did we heat the planet?
Right.
And you mentioned in this podcast that it's in the records. And I've seen some images of ice cores that were taken out, and I don't know how they keep the ice frozen long enough to be able to examine it, or if they melt it and examine the chemical composition. I don't know what they do. But I'm interested in, I'm assuming that the CO2 level in the atmosphere is the same around the world. So is it the same? The CO2 content is the same where I live as it is where you are, where it
Well,
is?
it's a well-mixed gas, meaning, it mixes quite quickly, but that doesn't mean you won't have local variations. You will have local variations. Okay. But when you go, like, say, to Greenland or Antarctica, West Antarctica is where they were doing the drilling. It pretty much, and you're looking at a year by year average, right? So you're looking at a whole layer of ice. So the way they do it is they drill, and it's in ice. It's ice, right? So it's drilling in ice, and then they put it in a refrigerated truck, layer by, so like a cylinder by cylinder goes out. And you label these cylinders. This is the first cylinder I took out, this is the second cylinder I took out, and so on.
Okay.
And then when you slice it layer by layer, you can tell which year each layer came from. Okay. So you can do carbon dating. You can date it, not carbon dating. You can date the molecules also. So
And
anyway,
you've talked about 10,000 years of history. Do these ice core, whatever they're taking out, do they go back that far, 10,000 years?
they go back million years.
A million years.
A million years, yeah.
How far do they have to drill to get back that far?
That's a long way.
Yeah.
To create a hole all the way. Yeah. Yeah. It's a big
and
operation. Yeah.
So other than CO2, what else might they be measuring?
They're measuring methane. And they're also measuring temperature, the average temperature.
They can figure out the average temperature that way.
Correct,
How
yeah. So there's a
interesting.
thermometer that's built in based on the ratio of some isotopes of oxygen.
Oh,
Right. There's a lot of detective work going on in there, to figure out each of these. But it's reasonably well understood how to do that. The air bubbles get trapped in that year in the snow, and that gets compressed and becomes part of the ice layer. Okay. And so in the air bubbles, you have CO2, you have methane. So you can calculate how much CO2 is there compared to all the other molecules. Then you can calculate how much methane was there compared to all the other molecules. So you have an idea of the parts per million of methane and parts per million of CO2. And
so
then,
how do we,
go ahead.
Sorry. How do we know that there were 6 trillion trees at one point?
Oh, so that's that's a paper by Crowther. And so I don't remember exactly how he came up with that estimate, but it's based on fossil records.
It is on fossil records, okay.
Correct, yeah, based on what kind of forests were there in any given region. So then now they have data going back, a few thousand years as to what was there. Like we know that the Sahara used to have forests.
Mm.
And not too long ago, I mean, it's about 4,000 years ago or so, there were forests in the Sahara,
Yeah. Mhm.
right? And then the North African monsoon disappeared, okay, stopped coming. And people thought it was some change that happened in the climate. The North African monsoon disappeared, and therefore the Sahara died. But in reality, there's a paper that shows that the deforestation of the Sahara, in order to graze animals, caused the North African monsoon to die out. And then the Sahara became a desert.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So the
Mm.
deforestation changes the rainfall patterns. And this is
Yeah.
known as the biotic moisture pump theory of how forests create their own rain, right? And I was, the other day, Brahm had said that that was the one thing in their models that they couldn't match reality, which is how the rainfall over the forest stay roughly the same, no matter how inland the forest is.
So they didn't match their theory. Is that what he was saying?
Yeah, if you look at the models, the global circulation models, which is what Brahm was working on at the Geophysical Fluid Dynamics Laboratory in Princeton. In the circulation models, which are models for climate, models for weather, and so on, they knew that the rainfall that they were getting in the models over forests did not match what was really happening in reality. And that is because the models did not have the biotic moisture pump in the model. Biotic moisture pump says that forests create their own rain.
Yes.
By transpiring water vapor above the forest and then creating microorganisms above the forest that become nucleus or raindrop formation that sucks the water vapor from above the ocean over the forest and drops it on the forest. Okay, so the forest is now converting salt water into fresh water. Because the salt water evaporated as water. There was no salt in the air when it evaporated. And then instead of falling back on the ocean, it got sucked over the land and became fresh water, right? So that's the biotic moisture pump.
Okay.
And by cutting down trees, we interfere with that biotic moisture pump. So we interfere with rainfall. And by interfering with rainfall, we desertify forests. So it becomes like a feedback loop. This is why the Amazon could quickly become a desert, because we are cutting the Amazon. Every year we're cutting some more of the Amazon.
Yeah. There's evidence that it's already happening, I think.
Correct, yeah. Because we are seeing wildfires in the Amazon. Okay.
Yeah.
The Amazon is a rainforest. It's not supposed to have wildfires.
Right.
It should be too wet to catch fire.
So the cutting down of the forest, you said in recent episodes, happened when agriculture started, when humans started reaching every corner of the earth after the last ice age. And in this ice record that you're talking about in this podcast, does it show kind of a progression that starts out slowly and then increases at a faster pace?
Right, that's exactly what it's showing. So until about 5,000 years ago, you can see that the CO2 levels matched what was happening 3 ice ages ago in the interglacial period, 3 ice ages ago, or 3 glaciations ago. There's one ice age and another 3 glaciations ago. And then you see it take off, right? And that's the human effect. That's what Rediman calls the human effect. So that's when enough agriculture clearing had happened to make the CO2, make all the CO2 from land go up into the atmosphere. So the CO2 levels in the atmosphere then start going up, and then they stayed flat at 280 parts per million until about 200 years ago, and then it took another upward swing, right? So, and now it's at 426 parts per million.
So that's the combination of cutting trees and spewing CO2 into the atmosphere combined.
Correct.
Oh.
Since from the industrial era onwards, we are still continuing to cut down trees. Okay.
Yeah.
Or still continuing to deforest.
Yes.
But on top of that, we are digging fossil fuels by the millions of barrels and burning them.
And we don't have enough trees to absorb the CO2 anymore.
Right. So you see it go up. But even then, if you look at the total amount we are emitting and compare it to the total amount that's staying in the atmosphere, you can see that until about 30 years ago, 90% of it or more was being sequestered. Okay.
Yeah.
It's slowly come down to about 70%. Today also, if you do gross accounting, meaning you count all the emissions as we are responsible for it, it's our emissions. Okay.
Yes.
We emitted it. And then don't take any credit for photosynthesis. You didn't do it. Humans did not do photosynthesis. Nature did it. So you give credit to nature for photosynthesis, you will realize that nature is already, even today, sequestering 70% of our emissions.
Amazing. So if we didn't have any trees, we would be gone.
Toast, yeah.
Yeah, we'd be toast. Venus, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Jim Hansen his estimate is that if you take all the fossil fuels that are underground today, dig it up and burn it, I mean, all the known reserves, if you dig it up and
all
burn
the known
it,
reserves.
which, by the way, is what the market is assuming we're going to do. Because the market is assuming that we are going to burn, because otherwise they wouldn't be valuing Exxon the way they're valuing Exxon. They wouldn't be valuing Chevron the way they're valuing Chevron. So if you look at the valuation of the oil companies and the fossil fuel companies, the market is assuming that they're going to burn all of the fossil fuels that they know of.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And Hansen said, if that happens, I mean, if what the market is assuming will happen, if it happens, the Venus syndrome is a dead certainty.
Yeah.
He said that, okay?
Yes.
Venus syndrome is a dead certainty, meaning all the carbon on ground will go up in the air.
Yeah. And if we go vegan and grow trees on the 40% of the land that's occupied by animal agriculture, would that allow us to sustain that, or would we still be
no, you still cannot burn all the fossil fuels and
still can't do it?
No,
Okay.
you cannot do that.
Okay.
So you have to stop that spigot too. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Over time. But
Okay.
yeah. So Venus syndrome is a dead certainty if we do that and go vegan too, right? Meaning if you burn all the fossil fuels into the ground, because it's like, nature is a great amplifier, right? As I've told you, systematically, you can think of nature as a great amplifier. So if we as human beings take all the fossil fuels that are underground and burn it and send it up into the air, nature says, oh, you want to send carbon into the air? I'll do that too. I can help you do that too. So it burns forests and sends it up. because the
Yes,
temperature goes
okay.
up, right? So it burns
Yes.
forest and sends it up because
Yeah.
so the weather changes, and so then all the carbon that's in the ground on the surface goes up into the air,
Yeah.
and that is the Venus syndrome.
I'm reading articles also about how forests are dying because of the changes in the temperatures. Trees can't migrate. I mean,
Yeah, they cannot
animals are
migrate
having
fast.
difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So
Yeah.
if it had happened over 100 years, I mean, over 1,000-year period, as opposed to tens of years we're doing it, right? If it
Mhm.
happens slowly, trees will start migrating slowly.
Okay.
So how do they migrate? The trees can't just walk away.
No.
So, so what happens is the seeds kind of get transported by the animals to a different
Mhm.
place because the animals are moving, right? And
So
then
if
the
the animals are
trees,
able to, yeah.
yeah, the trees, the animals move the seeds, and then the trees die where they are.
Yes.
And then the new trees are born where they are better suited
Mm.
because the animals moved there. Okay. So that's how it slowly changes. And when it happens over thousands of years, you don't even see it
Yeah.
happening. Okay,
Yeah.
it's slow. But
Yes.
when you do it very quickly, the trees burn where they are.
Yeah. And the seeds don't make it.
They
Yeah.
don't. The animals are also dying off.
Yeah. Okay. That helps to understand a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yesterday, I think it was, you mentioned that Homo sapiens evolved out of a population of about 100 people who were on Earth at one point. Um, was that because I mean, obviously, a lot of our ancestors died off at some point, and we were reduced to 100. Was that because of an ice age, or what was it? Do you know?
It was during glaciation.
During a glaciation.
During a glaciation, but we have no, there is no good explanation for how that happened. All we know is that constricted to about a few hundred at most a few hundred.
Okay.
And then those few hundred, if you go back, you will trace it back to one lady, the mitochondrial Eve. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's so interesting, but those are my questions for now, and I know Toby's waiting to ask more questions.
Sure.
Okay. Toby?
Here we go. Yeah, great. I was thinking if you're saying about how the idea of forests being able to create their own rain. I heard there's a scientist, I can't remember her name, in Russia, who I've heard talk about it quite a lot. They're doing a lot of work in Russia on that idea, I think.
Right.
It's really fascinating stuff. But I think if people know, surely, that the destruction of the Amazon is mainly caused by animal agriculture.
Right.
Surely people understand that, don't they? So people argue all sorts of stuff. But they can't wait till the Amazon's gone and turned into a desert until they're like, oh, right, well, this means we should probably do something, work a bit harder on this.
Yeah.
And that'd be too late then, wouldn't it, if the Amazon had gone? Because
well,
in the system's point of view.
basically the Brazilians are saying, hey, you guys did that on your forests over there, right? North America, Europe. There are lots of forests that got destroyed. So what's so special about this one that we are destroying? Now, why are they destroying? Because a forest does not make money until it's turned into lumber or turned into some product, right? So now, what the Amazon is being used is to turn the soil, which has the capacity to grow soybeans and grass, into cash. And
Into
over time,
nothing.
the soil disappears and it becomes a desert,
Yeah.
right? So you're sort of mining the soil and turning it into cash.
Mm.
Right? So there's a lot of cash to be made by making, by growing animals, feeding it to people, making them sick. There's a lot of cash to be made.
It's taking something that's real and making it into something that's not, which
Right.
is just numbers, So,
Right.
I mean, I feel like we were wealthier a long time ago,
Right.
when we had all this abundance of stuff. And now we've like all mixed it together and made this horrible soup of all
No,
sorts.
but you see, this for people who have the cash,
Mm,
it's real wealth in the sense that they're able to make other people do things for them,
mm,
right? So
yeah,
they're able to make other people, go and even build rockets to go to Mars for them,
mm,
right? With the cash that they have accumulated. No? So in
right.
that sense, it's real wealth because
Mm,
we bought into it. We as species, as human beings, we bought into the story of money.
mm,
So one way to say, I want to start a different money game is to say, I no longer buy that money game. You just have pieces of paper with pictures of King Charles on it. That's all you have,
yeah.
right? So if you start seeing that as just pieces of paper, and these are all just numbers in a bank, numbers in a computer that I'm not going to honor anymore, right? Which is really what happens when inflation uh, grows and people lose confidence in a currency.
Mm,
Right? What does it mean? People losing confidence in the currency is that they think these are all debts and those debts are not going to be repaid, which, by the way, is going to happen
mm,
to, to lots of currencies because a lot of the debts are not going to be repaid. And then those who are holding the debts are going to say, hey, it's not going to be repaid. I'm just going to, sell it as quickly as I can. And the value plummets in the market, right? So there's all these feedback loops in place for that.
It's always people online, really, but they say a lot of people say that we're not actually in a glaciation. Even if you look on you ask AI or anything, they'll say, "Oh, it's like 1,000 years in the future until we'll enter the glaciation." And it's like, well, that's just taking into the idea of the human effects. Like
Right.
if you take that out, then we'll be in a glaciation, right? And they still say, no, no, no. But that's based on the AMOC. Sorry, not the AMOC. Sorry, the what do you call it? The wobbles
Milankovitch
of the
cycles.
Milankovitch cycle. Yeah,
Right.
Milankovitch cycles. So, but we can prove that quite easily, can't we?
Well, that's what Bill Ruddiman is saying is that the Milankovitch cycles for this particular interglacial period looked like the one that happened 3 glaciations ago,
Mm.
until about 6,000 years ago, and then it takes a deviation. So clearly that deviation is caused by human beings. It's not the natural phenomenon. Absent human activity, we would be in a glaciation today.
And we know that because of the Milankovitch cycle.
See, the Milankovitch cycle also has
Oh.
randomness built in.
Mm.
Because if you look at um, the CO2 levels and the temperature in the ice core record, it's not nice. It's not a simple sine wave.
Mm.
It's got all these jagged edges here and there, goes up and down like a yo-yo, right? I
Wild.
mean, yeah, there's a lot of non randomness, slight randomness in the wobbles. These are not completely deterministic wobbles.
As we see, like the last ice age, the last major ice age,
Hmm.
was different than the ice age previous, which was like a whole block of ice, the whole ice age. Is that correct? It's like
Yeah.
three ices. Yeah. So
So
it's getting more and more like interglacial and glacial.
so if you show the the graph that you had behind you
Mm.
uh, last night, or was it yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday. Yeah.
Yesterday you had that graph behind you, right? And
Mm.
you see that the blue bars that are coming down,
Mm.
those blue bars that are coming down on the right-hand side, corresponding to the current era, was not a solid blue bar.
Oh.
If you were to drill deep into that, you would see it's like a fine tooth comb. It's like a
Mm.
fine comb. It came down, went up, came down, went up, right?
Right.
And it wasn't periodic. It's like a comb that's got, uneven teeth.
Mm.
That's what you would have seen.
So the ice age before that one was solid. There
Was
was
solid.
no
Was solid,
right.
yeah. That was 300 million years ago. That was solid.
Oh, right. Okay.
Oh, 400 million years ago.
400 million. Yeah. But yeah, so it's becoming more less and less predictable, isn't it, to
Right,
understand these
right.
things?
So when you see a uneven tooth comb like that, it's a
Mm.
sign of a system that's oscillating, right? Which means it is very, very sensitive.
Mm.
Okay. So it's very,
Yeah.
very sensitive to small changes. It's so when your system is that sensitive, okay, you need to tighten the feedback loops
Mm.
if you want to stabilize it. Okay, that's normal thing we do in control systems. And so the time constants of the feedback loops are very, very long, which is why it's not able to stabilize. It's going up and down. Okay. And so to stabilize it, you need to reduce the time constant, which is what we are able to do.
Mm.
So this is why it's also good to have a reserve of fossil fuels underground.
Yeah.
Just in, just in
Just in
case you have
case we're
to,
getting,
yeah,
yeah.
you have to, I mean, I don't know what our kids and grandkids have to do, to stabilize it and maintain it. But our job, our generation, our job is to stabilize it first so that you don't get into the Venus syndrome.
Which was all the CO2 in the atmosphere. We want it down on
Yeah.
ground. Yeah.
Yeah. The current plan, according to the market, the economic market's current plan is to get to the Venus syndrome as quickly as possible.
Mm. Wow.
That's what they're planning, right? That's that's what they've built into their models.
Unbelievable. Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they have priced it in the market. They priced it in the fact that Exxon gets to burn all that fossil fuels and Chevron gets to burn all that fossil fuel. All these companies, they're priced according to that assumption.
People see that and think, there's no point fighting it because, you can't beat them. They want to turn this place into, hell.
Yeah, you can't beat them, but when people participate in the market, why are the stocks priced that way? Because there are people buying the stocks, right? And so when you price it in like that in the market, you're basically saying, I'm going to make money off the growth of Exxon, off the growth of Chevron.
Mm.
Okay. So you're betting that they're able to sell all that oil, right?
Yeah.
It's a betting game. We are betting that way, right? So the market is betting that way. So humanity as a whole is betting that we will get into the Venus syndrome as quickly as possible.
I do. I've always thought that for a while too. It's just gambling. It's just like a big gambling
It's gambling,
thing, isn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
And they're
it's
addicted.
a lot of us are addicted, right? A lot of people are gambling in the stock market now, right? And it's not just the um, the playground of the rich anymore, because everybody has mutual funds and what, and they're moving things around, trying to grow their own little nest egg, and all of that is about growth, growth, growth. It's about growing the economy, and it's designed to um, do a fast track to the Venus syndrome. And this is
That
why
protein.
the third option I'm talking about, which is stabilizing, requires us to get off the growth paradigm.
Yeah.
So which we'll be talking about in future chapters,
Right, great.
Yeah. See, we have to agree that human engineered systems are the only things we control. Okay, really. Nature we don't control. She's going to give you consequences for your attempt to control her, right? So nature, you have to figure out what she wants and try to help her, be in alignment with nature. Okay, that's what we need to be doing. So only thing we can control is human engineered systems. And human engineered systems can be re-engineered anytime, as quickly as we want. Right?
It's the most beautiful thing, isn't it? They're just explaining the idea that we think, oh, there's native trees, but they can still migrate over hundreds of years, like we were native to Africa, and now we're everywhere, aren't we? You do slowly start to go around and think, like, to have these symbiotic relationships with all the animals, moving the seeds about and stuff. Like, nature's just absolutely beautiful. And to, be part of it as much as you can. That's the whole point of life, is really becoming who we are, integrate ourselves properly.
Right. Right. Good, Alison.
I wanted to mention, it's getting late, but there was one question in the chat about what is the role of dairy in heating the earth? Since the topic of this chapter is what have we done to heat the earth? So anyway, there is that question in the chat.
Dairy is the foundational industry for heating the earth. If you take out dairy, the entire heating enterprise collapses. It's that powerful. So this is why I say, addressing the dairy industry is paramount, right? Because without dairy, there is no cheap beef. And there is no cheap leather. So the dairy consumer has been thoroughly deceived into thinking that dairy is food, because it is not. Cow's milk is not really good food for us. It's meant for a calf to grow from baby to adult in 18 months, whereas we grow from baby to adult in 18 years. And we are 1/5 the size of a cow. So it's a fluid that's meant to grow a body 50 to 60 times faster than we ever need to grow. Okay? It's definitely not good food for us. It was used as medicine once upon a time. Because it was, medicine is taken in small quantities. Anything taken in small quantities is good for you. Right? Could be good for you. But anything that you think, it's okay, it's good for me when I take it in small quantities, therefore I can take a lot, it becomes poison for you, right? You know that. We all know that. Even water can become poison for us if we take it in too much.
Take too much medicine.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, in that context, dairy milk taken in maybe teaspoon or tablespoon was used as medicine to address issues, pathologies in your body or whatever, That's the way it was. And then they said it is like, oh, it really heals your body when you do this, etc., etc. So these are empirical observations that happened over time. Now, someone came along and said, that medicine, I'm going to turn it into food because I want to make a lot of money off of it. Okay. So, so now we are consuming it in excess. Not only are we consuming it in excess, it's no longer medicinal levels, but at food levels, the dairy itself has become commercially altered, I mean, chemically altered with hormones, with, with genetic modification of the cows so that they grow really, really fast. So,
Yeah.
so that fluid has become more and more toxic. And it's also now storing all the chemical pollution. It's because all the chemical pollution gets stored in fat cells. A lot of the chemicals we have put into the environment they stick to fat cells. So
And
there's,
so when they make skim milk and take the fat largely out of the milk, that goes into what, cheese?
yeah, the cheese is full of this. Ghee is
Yeah.
full of this. This is why I
Mhm.
say if you use ghee as a something for sacred lighting ceremonies and stuff, it's full of this chemical pollution. So you haven't understood the current environment. So there's nothing sacred about showing that, using that as a fuel. Anyway, so dairy is the key, is what I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
So
without dairy, there's no cheap beef.
yeah.
Because the dairy consumer has paid for the beef already. Yeah.
So then you only have the expensive beef after that.
Yeah, you'll only have steaks.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you'll only have steaks and so that the consumption will go down like crazy, right? If you have to pay that much for
Right.
steaks.
Yes.
So the
And
market itself is,
also, I read recently that it takes 8 cowhides to upholster one automobile because you can't use the whole hide. You can only use certain parts of it for making the upholstery. So it would make the leather upholstering or leather anything would become very expensive also, not just the beef.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything
Well,
it gets impacted.
yeah. So what do you want to do with your time? Do you
It's
want to
okay.
take more questions?
Let's take Tammy and Ray. Tammy, you still have a question or no?
Yeah, sorry, I can't put on my video. You go ahead, Allison.
No, that was your question. Do you have another question, Tammy?
I just wanted to elaborate on this a little bit. So Sailesh, do you think part of the helpfulness of this, bringing it to the compassion aspect of mother and offspring of all animals, but also like the beautiful biology of it, so like fat has a purpose, right? Because it stores toxins so we don't die right away. But the milk and its gift, the milk as a gift, right? As opposed to just the cruelty. I guess I'm not really sure what I'm asking, but I'm just wondering if you could elaborate on that a little wee bit to bring, because so many people are really, like Ray says, there's a place for raw truth, and it's not going to turn them off if they're ready to listen, to know the truth. Like, it's like, hey, do you know, like when I tell people, do you know that all the babies are taken away from their mothers so that we can drink milk? They're like, what? You know what I mean? So it's okay to say that stuff, but do we say it with compassion? Like, oh my God, I love nursing my baby. That was my most special thing in the whole world. So anyways, that's all I want to say.
Yeah. No, thank you, Tammy. Yes, the emotional part of it, that comes about when we speak about those relationships. That's key to the transformation, because people change from the heart, much more from the head. The heart has to be impacted for us to change, usually. And dairy, all these things there was a reason, right? So, like animals, we don't excrete toxins quickly. Our liver takes time. So we store it in the fat cells. So it's outside It's not part of the normal circulation. We store it outside. And then when we eat animals that have done the same thing, they've stored their fat, the toxins in the fat. We eat animals and we eat the fat, we get it in concentrated quantities. And it takes us 7 years to excrete half of it through the liver. So if it takes 7 years to reduce it by half, and you're eating a fresh load every meal, you can imagine how fast it accumulates in our bodies. Now, trees are very good at filtering these toxins out quickly, but they also store it in their trunks. So I'm actually, when I go speak to the Institute for Chemical Technology here, and I'm appealing to them to change the curriculum to address all this. Why do we need all this chemical pollution for our industrial processes? Because we designed all these processes assuming that the earth can handle it. Okay? Now we are discovering the earth cannot handle it anymore. So there has to be a crash change in curriculum in the education system. Ray, last question.
Well, first, a little bit on this topic of dairy. Is vegetarianism a compromised worldview? That's kind of what you're saying. It's kind of we're better than most, so that's good enough. And cheese is the ultimate pleasure trap. It's like ice cream. Realistically, it should be in a category with ice cream, not with any sort of nutritional value. We don't eat ice cream for nutrition, and we shouldn't eat cheese for nutrition at all. Yet there's an incredible industry based around it. And as vegan outreach people know, how often have we heard people, I couldn't give up my cheese, couldn't give up my cheese, and we talk about it being addictive. But that wasn't really my question. It was something you said earlier about needing to keep fossil fuels. And when I saw this diagram and I was kind of plotting it through this peak and decline,
right?
And then there's this point where we go into another ice age. It's hundreds of years from now. We're talking centuries, because this was 300 years. This is another 300 years, but we eventually cross that line, either because the human race has extincted ourselves or collapsed our civilization. We can't, we lose that infrastructure. But conceivably, the thermostat species could use fossil fuels resources. We don't burn them all. We don't burn them until they're gone and then go, okay, let's try renewable energy now. There's that mindset. But conceivably, we could need to burn fossil fuels in order to be managing the thermostat with our clever science. So science is definitely part of it. It's not returning to not a non-scientific domain. This is something new. This isn't reverting. This isn't backwards thinking. It's always forward.
Yeah, it is. It's moving forward, knowing everything we know, and keeping, it's not about forgetting everything and going back to caveman days. This is what people think it is. They're saying, no, it's not, got nothing to do with that. It's about making progress, understanding our role in the ecosystems of the planet, and then fulfilling that responsibility. As soon as we understood this graph, okay? As soon as we understood this graph and we know that we can change, we as a species did that, right? The A and the B, we did that.
And all this yellow area.
Yeah, all that we did.
Bigger, more impact than the effects of fossil fuels. It's right there.
Correct. So,
and actually, I always should point out, this is kind of known as the era of industrialization and the burning of fossil fuels as our primary energy source, but it's also the industrialization of agriculture.
Exactly.
So that's not operating that's not evidence that it's going out of whack. It's great stability and then this going out of whack. That's
Right.
as much agriculture as it is fossil fuels.
Correct. In fact, according to Jared Bishop, at least half of that B is coming from animal agriculture alone, right? So almost all of the A came from animal agriculture. And about more than half of the B came from animal agriculture. That's what he's claiming in his paper.
Yeah. I refer to this as the early Anthropocene hypothesis. It's sometimes called the Reimagined hypothesis, and we've talked about why is it still a hypothesis? This should be proven by now. But part of it is that the Holocene is man-made. Talk about Anthropocene. We made the Holocene, and I don't think the majority of climate people are ready to admit that. That's why it's still a hypothesis, because the concluding detail here is that humanity is taking control of the environment. But I pointed out this leveling is a benefit. It allowed agriculture to thrive. We kind of simultaneously built a thing that causes the thing to perpetuate itself, which is fascinating. That blows my mind over and over again.
Yeah.
But the idea of the Anthropocene, and it's too big a topic to discuss here, but the idea of the Anthropocene being a bad thing is pretty prevalent too. Look at what we've done to the earth. Whereas it should be a project of how do we find our stewardship of the earth? How do we manage that and build a sustainable, truly sustainable future? And that's a fascinating topic. But the Anthropocene has been decided by the working group that it started in the detonation of the hydrogen bomb in the 50s, as opposed to 10,000 years ago or 50,000 years ago when we started killing off all the megafauna on the planet.
Right.
We've had a huge impact. This is an example of how our impact has been doing bad things, but with a positive message, at least a positive message, if not a positive result. Desertification and deforestation is bad if we want to get melodramatic about it, but it was a bad that proved that we have a role to play as a thermostat species, and that's a good thing.
Right. And noticing that that we did that unknowingly. Okay, that we did that unknowingly, and now we are sort of recognizing we did A unknowingly, and B we kind of now know that we are doing it. That's only in the last 30, 40 years we really got to know that we are doing it, right? So that's why I ask for people to have humility. That don't think you did it. Let's start thinking like we were used by nature to do it.
And we found a silver lining in military and war. It's evil. Like we categorize it as evil, but it's something that humanity needed to do in order to develop the science that puts us into space and looks back at the earth and have that moment of like that image behind you to look at the earth and realize we're all in this together. Military had a role in that. And agriculture, bad agriculture had a role. That is, if there's a intelligent design, we've been used for it. And it may not be a particular spiritual entity, it may be just the flow of nature itself.
Right. Yeah. Like life wants to thrive, and life is going to thrive. Life is trying to thrive through us, with our help. Life can thrive. But we also have the capacity to create the Venus syndrome on Earth. Okay, so we have the power to do that. And we currently seem to have the intention to do that, according to
I was thinking the atom bomb itself is something that had to teach humanity some humility. Okay, we've got a thing now. We can destroy the planet. We're doing the same thing with agriculture. We're doing the same thing with fossil fuels. And now we need to change our worldview and say everybody is involved in this. This isn't anymore us versus them.
Right.
tribal thing. We need the maturity to be the inhabitants of Planet B.
Exactly. So that's a nice segue into the next next episode. So thank you so much, Ray.
Well, thank you.
We'll see you all. The same thing will be repeated this evening, and we'll see you tomorrow for the episode 14.
The house is burning, but we're still sitting in the glow. Phones charged, lights on, pretending we don't know. But the forest is silent, the river's running low, and the flame on our plates is the strongest fire we throw. Put out the fire, put out the fire. Echoes and rise, this is your hour. 7 boundaries broken, the earth pushed past the line. Climate, land, species, fresh water, chemicals, nutrients, oceans in decline. Not danger, disaster in real time. Put out the fire, ooh, put out the fire. Metafudians rise, this is your power. And here in India, one truth stands the same. Milk is not just milk, dairy feeds the flame. Cows and methane, fields and forests turn to grain. Politics, culture, carbon, all wired to the same chain. Every cup of curd is heat in the air, every block of butter is a forest repair. It's not a small habit, it's a planetary affair. Put out the fire, put out the fire. Echoes and rise, this is our hour. Energy fixes half the hurt, Dr. Rao made that clear. But food fixes the other half, the half that's burning here. Change the plate, change the land, change the future's atmosphere. Put out the fire, put out the fire. Metafudians unite, this is your choir. Every millet, every fruit, every sapseed, every bean is water on the wildfire of a world we've never seen. Every oil-free bite is a river turning clean. This is not perfection, it's direction. Not pressure, but protection. A week of choices can cool a generation. A company's courage can ignite a nation. Put out the fire, ooh, put out the fire. Echoes and